Chinese researchers have developed a new missile. According to Chinese reports, it would be able to shoot down early warning aircraft and bombers, preventing them from entering possible regional conflicts. You see, China is growing increasingly possessive of territories it claims as its own, and so it's coming up with new weapons to safeguard them, perhaps. But is there more to this? Is this a provocation for India? Let me first tell you more about the new Chinese missile itself. It is a surface-to-air missile with a killing range of over 2,000 kilometers. 2,000 kilometers. Surface-to-air missiles typically have a flight range of tens of kilometers, the fastest few reaching several hundred kilometers. But China says this one can hit a target that is 2,000 kilometers away. The missile is 8 meters long and weighs around 2.5 tons. It has low production costs and is suitable for vehicle-mounted mobile launch. And this makes it convenient for daily operations. The missile has a two-stage propulsion system. Its rocket motor provides it enormous thrust for vertical launch. Further, its ramjet engine propels the missile in the upper atmosphere. Now, all these details have been published via a peer-reviewed paper in the Chinese language Journal of Graphics. The paper has not disclosed the missile's appearance, but the parameters suggest it may be similar to the Tianwen-1 hypersonic vehicle. China aims to use the missile for attacking early warning aircraft. The paper further goes on to say that the PLA would first issue a warning to its target, essentially to the aircraft's country of origin, and would only fire if the infiltrator fails to turn back. It also claims that the new missile is important for maintaining regional and global peace and stability. But given the timing of it all, it seems far from peace. Consider what has happened in the last few weeks itself. For example, ever since India inaugurated the Sela Tunnel, China has been restless. This month alone, it has brought up the Arunachal issue 4 times. It's an issue, according to China, of course. Simply, Chinese spokesperson's reiteration was not enough, and so Chinese media is shooting out editorial pieces. They are written in poor taste and are full of misdirected anger. You see, China is offering advice, which, by the way, no one asked for. One of the editorials says India is naive to interfere in the South China Sea issue. Let me just give you some context here. After the recent flare-ups in the South China Sea, the Indian External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, met with his Philippine counterpart in Manila. He called for staunch adherence to a rules-based order, which China is particularly averse to. And now it is mad over India for supporting the Philippines. But why? What did it even expect when it started bullying its neighbors? That they will just stand around and do nothing? I'm sorry, that's not happening. You see, China is questioning India's role in the South China Sea. It says it is not directly involved in the South China Sea issue, but I think it has not taken a look at the map recently. India has a port in the Nicobar group of islands. The Great Nicobar port overlooks the Strait of Malacca, which connects the Indian Ocean with the South China Sea. India has a very strategic role to play here. It controls choke points in the region, and China is claiming India has nothing to do in the South China Sea. Sounds like a gross understatement. The editorial piece also claims that India is exploiting the South China Sea issue as a strategic hedge against China, essentially to build pressure. But deep down, China just seems triggered by what's going on in Arunachal Pradesh. India is boosting infrastructure near the line of actual control. It is increasing last-mile connectivity to the border areas. It's also deploying more troops. And why shouldn't it? Considering China's absurd claims that are frantic and frequent. The trafficking of guns from the United States to Haiti has resulted in a surge of violence in the country. Haiti has already been in a state of crisis ever since its president, Jovenel Moïse, was assassinated in 2021. In fact, the Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, also announced his resignation earlier this month. Deadly gang wars have been erupting in the capital over the past few weeks, and politically connected gangs have stormed the prisons, torched shops and police stations, and even seized the international airport. It really does not help the situation that all kinds of firearms from America are making their way into the country. Ironically, Haiti does not manufacture any weapons, yet AK-47s, 9mm pistols, sniper rifles, machine guns are finding themselves in the hands of the trigger-happy gangs. They are being smuggled in from different parts of the United States through land, air and sea. And what's even more shocking is that they are hidden in containers that carry donations of toys and clothes. A United Nations report has estimated that close to 500,000 legal and illegal weapons have made their way to Haiti since 2020. Almost 4,000 people were killed, 3,000 kidnapped in 2023. A number of people have been displaced. Close to half the population is facing a food shortage. The UN has also pointed out that some airstrips were originally built for humanitarian aid after a devastating earthquake in 2010 are also being used to ferry in flights carrying illegal arms. The UN Secretary General recently sent out a message to gangs in Haiti to silence the guns. The United States says that it is looking into the issue and plans to set up a policing unit in Haiti to address this. According to many Haitians, it is the inaction of the government to control this menace that has led to this devastating situation. They say those who live in glass houses should not throw stones. Well, it's time to call out those who abuse their judicial processes at home and still lecture others on domestic matters. Isn't it time that the United States owns up to its own flaws before pointing fingers at others? Time and again, the US has meddled and tried to meddle in India's affairs, and this week was no exception. New Delhi is not taking it lying down. In fact, New Delhi has issued a strong objection to the remarks made by the spokesperson of the US State Department, who called for fair, transparent and timely legal process following the arrest of the Delhi Chief Minister, Arvind Kejriwal. Now, here's what has happened so far. Let's break it all down for you. Earlier this week, a spokesperson from the US State Department said that they were closely monitoring the arrest of Arvind Kejriwal. They encouraged a fair, transparent and timely legal process for him. Last week, the Enforcement Directorate, remember, that's India's financial crime fighting agency, arrested Arvind Kejriwal. He is the leader of the Aam Aadmi Party, which governs India's national capital. Also, it governs the state of Punjab. Arvind Kejriwal was arrested on charges of corruption. Now, this news caused quite a stir in India as it came just weeks before the country heads to the polls. It was also the first time in Indian history that such a move was taken. The ED arrested Arvind Kejriwal for allegedly being involved in corruption related to Delhi's liquor policy. Kejriwal's Aam Aadmi Party claims that the case is fabricated and has accused the authorities of making a politically motivated arrest. However, the authorities have denied any interference. Now, this is a complex political matter, to say the least, which we will get to later. But first, let me just tell you more about the diplomatic row itself that has unfolded between India and the United States. On Wednesday, India summoned the acting US Deputy Chief of Mission in New Delhi, following the comment made by the US State Department. In fact, the Indian External Affairs Ministry issued a statement telling America that India's legal processes are based on an independent judiciary, and casting aspersions on that is unwarranted.
The recent remarks by the State Department are unwarranted. Any such external imputation on our electoral and legal processes is completely unacceptable.
Now, India and the United States have a close friendship, but that does not mean that America can say whatever without being called out. A true friend is not afraid to point out when the other party is wrong, and that is why it's important to remind the US of the number of times an American president has used his power over the judiciary to settle political scores. Just look at the timing behind the many cases against former President Donald Trump, for example. Before the U.S. Supreme Court restored him to the 2024 presidential primary ballots, many states tried to ban him from the polls. The Colorado Supreme Court invoked an archaic constitutional provision to keep Trump from appearing on the ballots. It was the first time a court had ever invoked the insurrection clause to disqualify an ex-president. Colorado was the first state to ban Donald Trump from the ballot, followed by Maine and then Illinois. What's common among these states, you ask? Well, they are all democratic states. And this raised the question, did the Democrats try to misuse the justice system in these states to damage their chief political rival? And if yes, it would have significant implications for democracies world over. Despite all of this, no Indian leader lectured the oldest democracy in the world on their internal affairs. India, the largest democracy of the world, did not meddle in US affairs. Look, the matter in India concerning the arrest of Arvind Kejriwal is quite complex. Both the authorities and Arvind Kejriwal have, of course, reacted. Kejriwal's arrest just days before the elections does also lead to questions being asked. If the ED had evidence against him, why didn't they arrest him earlier? That's one of the questions being asked, for example. On the other hand, Arvind Kejriwal, his alleged evasiveness as far as the law enforcement agency is concerned also casts serious doubts on his claims of innocence. Still, at the end of the day, it is a legal and political matter of India. And as the case plays out in the court, the truth will eventually come to light. However, the US must stop meddling in the affairs of others and start looking at their own actions. It's time to call a spade a spade. Forget about what's going on with the opposition in India. Can Washington take a hard look at itself? And perhaps it's time they did. It's long overdue.